Hi everyone, my name's Elaine and I'm here with my friend
Jeremy.
We're going to be reviewing a Discworld board game, Guards today. It's by Backspindle Games. It's for 2 to 6 players ages 12 and up, and it should take about 120 minutes to play. Now, when we're playing this game, we have to take you on a little bit of a journey. You're at the bookstore. You're like, nah, I don't want to read this week. So you go and you look at those board games. And maybe this game called to you because you're a Discworld lover and reader like myself, or maybe you just like the box art. I'm not here to judge, but you gravitate toward this game and you pick it up and you're like, Guards, that's the 8th book in the Discworld series. It must have something to do with Guards, right? Well, no, it doesn't. We're going to take you on a little journey, talk about why that is in the game in general. You ready, Jer? You're going to be doing the heavy lifting.
Absolutely ready.
Let's do it!
Welcome to Ankh-Morpork. This is the city that's going to serve as the battlefield for your game of Guards. As you can see, we have a lot of the important places within the city. We have the Unseen University. We have a hospital. We have all of our guild specialty areas here that you can travel to throughout the game. And we have this wonderful little track of footprints going through the entire city. And as I explain a little bit more about the mechanics, we'll get into what that track of footprints actually represents. The first thing you're going to do after you set up this wonderfully convoluted board is pick your guild that you're going to be representing. Your little guild tracker has the 5 spells that you're trying to get, which you get from the little spell slots on the board. It has a way of tracking your different abilities here. It has your specific guild ability, and it has the rules around when you try to sabotage somebody. Guards is a game that has a lot of mechanics to it. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on absolutely everything, but the basis behind the game is you are trying to get the 5 spells that are marked on your board here. So like this one would be the black, blue, purple, red, and yellow. Trying to get those from these spots on the board here to the specific color back to the Unseen University because the wizards have apparently let those spells get loose. So, as I explained, the principle behind trying to win this game is going to the different spells and bringing them back to the university, and that seems like it would be something that would be really easy. Why can't I just move there and then just go back and bring it back? Well, on your turn, you have the ability to move up to 6 spaces in any direction you want on this board, and eventually you want to get to the spells and collect them and then have somebody bring them back. If you're not going to be the one bringing them back, who brings them back? Well, when you go to some of these spaces like the Lords and Ladies and the Shades and Shadows and the Man and Beasts, you're going to be able to try and recruit people. What is the benefit of recruiting people? Well, you can get the spells, and once you're on the spells, you have to send a group of those people that you've recruited back to the Unseen University to try and pass these challenges. These challenges are all based on dice rolls. So if you don't have people that can add to your dice rolls, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to beat these specific challenges when you're trying to bring the spells back. So how does recruiting work? Recruiting works when you go to one of these spots like the Lords and Ladies, Shades and Shadows, Man and Beast like I mentioned, but you can also do it at the specific taverns on the board. So when you go to one of those places, you're going to draw one of the cards from the specific deck that corresponds with the space. So in the case of like Shades and Shadows, you would go to this Shades and Shadows deck. Let's give you a couple of examples on how things work here. So if you were to go to the Shades and Shadows space, you could potentially get somebody like this. So on this one, you can see he has a charm of 2, he has a bribe of 2, and he has all of these stats here, which is what you would use later when you're calculating for the challenges, things like that, or fighting. He also has an ability at the bottom, which is actually a detriment to you. It's actually called Infectious, which infects you with the pox. So that would reduce your movement speed, and even if you just touch the card, it says you're infected with the pox, so like drawing it. Some cards like this one would allow you to cure yourself of the pox, but you could also go to the hospital. So, say this card comes up, you want to get this card. This would force you to make a roll with the 8-sided die included in the game, right here, and if the charm roll using the charm stat on your player board is equal to or greater than the number in the charm spot, then you're able to charm him. If you roll an 8, the highest number you can roll on this die, you automatically get this guy, and you can flip over the next one and try and get that piece as well, that card. So let me go over a couple of specifics when it comes to the cards. When you're looking at these cards, there are some things that can happen on them. So on this one, this guy is wanted. That means you can go to a guard center, one of the city watch places. Let me see if I can find one right here. And that would allow you to turn him in, and you'd get his bribe value +1. So this one would get you 4. So even if you paid 3 to get him, you actually could get 1 extra one for bringing him in. This one has the little fate symbol on the bottom. So the fate symbol means that you have to draw from the fate deck, and that has a whole bunch of different effects, and some of them can actually be pretty game-changing, so that's not something to be taken lightly. Let's look at this one. Before, this one has the special effect that cures the pox, but you can also see it's +1 charm, which means now once you get this person into your party, that would allow you to tick up your charm bonus on your player mat. So right here, say you started at the 0 for charm. If you get that person, Nanny Og, into your party, you'd be able to go up to +1. So that would add 1 to all of the rolls that you make for charm rolls. So now that we've basically gone over recruitment cards, there's one other element of each of the recruitment cards that interacts with another mechanic of the game. It's one of the most interesting and annoying mechanics of the game, and it involves one of my favorite aspects of the Discworld in general, and that is the luggage. I promised we'd talk about those footprints that move around the board, and this is what it refers to. This guy is going to be going around the board, and if you get in the way and he hits you, he sends you to the hospital, which is kind of lucky because a lot of times when he bumps into people in the actual stories, he eats them. So I guess going to the hospital is a little bit better than dying. How do we determine how the luggage is going to move? Well, the luggage is determined by the recruitment cards here when you draw them. It says luggage moves 7. So that would then move it 7 along the path of the footprints. There are some cards that actually have it where it says luggage does not move. So there's all different numbers. This one here says, let's look at some other examples. This one says luggage moves 4. This one says luggage moves 14, so that's a big one. So the luggage is something that can kind of mess with people, and it makes you kind of want to keep your little meeple guy off of the luggage track, because it could really be something that sets you back, sends you to the hospital, which puts you in an area that you don't necessarily want to be in. So you have recruited all of the people that you want to recruit. You have gotten one of the spells that you need to get. What does that mean? What happens then? You would then want to send however many of your party you want back to the Unseen University to try and return the spell. But the Unseen University is notorious for their traps. So what happens is you have to go to this little area here. You'd go back to your starting area, and you would have to try and pass these tests. So you can see like Streetwise, Toughness, Loyalty, Streetwise, and Brawl, and then a magic test at the end. So now you're trying to get through those by rolling die and adding the numbers from the people that you sent back. So you want to look at the stats of the people that are on here and make sure that you're sending back the right people. That would make the rolls easier. If you do succeed, you get to place one of these little token guys on the whichever tests you manage to pass, and once you've passed it, you then discard the recruits that you sent with it. They, go off. They return that one thing that you're trying to do, and you then would have to send more people to do the next test. One thing I do want to clarify is when you pass that first test and put that marker there, that does mean that you've returned one of the spells. So by going through all of the tests, you've returned all 5 of them by the end. And when you have your little board here, you can actually mark off the spells that you have returned. There are going to be other aspects of the game that I don't feel like I need to go into super detail on. There's ways to summon dragons, which are pretty cool. Like, I like the dragons. They can really mess up your plans in the game, though, because they're really strong. And, like, sometimes you can kind of leave, like, the other players to fight them, but, like, there's ways of fighting them, and all the rules are explained. You can fight other players. You can use these little sabotage tokens to sabotage people when they're trying to return spells, where your people kind of jump out and go, yeah, and you have to fight them, and then that could really mess up somebody's plan when it comes to trying to return a spell. We already went over the luggage, and there are some items that you can actually get. So look at something like this. These are items that you can get. There's also scrolls, which allow you to do different things, and I have that upside down, sorry. And then that's a way of, you can pay for them and they can help you out with different situations. Some of them are one-shot items. Some of them are items that you can keep. So these can actually really change how you're playing. Most of the important stuff that you need to know is on this little player guide that comes with it. So it's like front and back. It's easy to understand, at least as easy as anything in this game is going to be to understand, but it's going to kind of be your reference guide for the stuff that you need to know regularly throughout the game. Now that we've gone over the mechanics behind the game, a brief overview, and kind of how to play everything, I'm going to meet you back up top, and we're going to talk about what we think about the game.
As we mentioned in the beginning of our review, Guards has nothing to do with the 8th book in the Discworld, as you would assume when you first pick it up. I'm just going to go over some of the differences. First of all, Guards includes the luggage, which at this point in the series is trapped in the dungeon dimensions with Rincewind after the events of Sorcery, the 5th book. Another thing is just the actual play of the game. You're playing as a guild, and you're trying to return errant spells to the university to help the wizards out because they can't manage themselves, as, wizards do. That's not a thing that ever happens. The closest we can get, arguably, is when the wizards try to retrieve the 8th Octavo spell from Rincewind in the 2nd book in the series, the Light Fantastic, but this isn't something you see. Another thing is, in general, you know that the guilds exist in Ankh-Morpork, but they're never really up front and center in any of the books. You see it sometimes. I mean, that's not like a hard and fast rule. You do see it sometimes. An example would be the 7th book, Pyramids, the first section of that book, when you see Tepik's life at the Assassin's Guild. But again, they're not ever really up front and center, so it was kind of weird to have something where they play such a major role. Another thing I noticed is that they include elements from several different books. There's actually a piece on the board and cards even that are called Lords and Ladies. That's another book in the series. It hasn't happened yet at this point. There are characters too from things outside of Guards. For example, we have Victor Tugelbend. It actually tells you on the cards. He's from Moving Pictures. That's book 10, so that hasn't happened yet. We have Glod Glotzin from... That's actually wrong. He's saying he's in Guards, but he doesn't show up until Soul Music, which is book 17. So the cards are a lie, too. The cards are a lie! Like the cake. The cake's a lie. We have Nigel the Destroyer, the barbarian wannabe from Sorcery. That was 3 books ago. That's book 5. Just little things like that. And also, like I said, it does say which book they're supposedly in at the bottom of the card, but that doesn't take into account characters that show up in multiple books. Now that you know how to play and how this game differs from Guards, the 8th book in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, we want to give you our thoughts. We're just going to jump into things. We're not going to be like pros, cons, because we're not the most organized people sometimes, and that's okay. So for me, as someone who has read the Discworld novels, who is currently rereading them, I'm a little frustrated by the fact that this has literally nothing to do with the book. Like, what you would expect when you pick it up. I honestly don't understand why they didn't make a game where, let's say, the dragon has been summoned and you are members of the Watch and you have to fight against the dragon and it's a cooperative game and that's the game. Like, I honestly do not get why they didn't do something that worked better with the book, or just give the game a different name so it's not confusing for people who have read the book and do have these expectations.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had similar mechanics if you wanted to have all the characters, like where you could recruit them. You could recruit them to fight the dragon or something. I think in this it's like the Grand Master is summoning the dragon.
Yeah, the Grand Master with his brothers of the Elucidated Brethren. It's a very long, weird name. I forgot it. I'm sorry.
That's the same person who's summoning it in the book?
The Grand Master, Supreme Brother of the Elucidated...
I think it just refers to him as the Grand Master in the instruction booklet. But
brain confuzzles.
I mean, one thing I do appreciate is and it was something you had a little bit of an issue with being not an adaptation win, was the luggage is in this, and the luggage is one of my favorite parts of Discworld. I haven't been exposed to a ton of Discworld outside of editing your summaries and reviews, but
and those movies we watched.
And the movies we watched. But I do like the luggage. I'm assuming the guy on the cover of the game is supposed to be Rincewind, and he doesn't look like the Rincewind I know, because I know the Rincewind from the movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he looks like, he's like a...
He doesn't have wizard on his hat, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't think that's Rincewind. It could be the Arch-Chancellor.
Oh, maybe.
One of them. One of the many Arch-Chancellors that we go through in the Discworld.
The guy who was looking for the bathroom.
Ridcully?
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be him. I don't know. But, I mean, I like the luggage, too. He's one of my favorite parts of the Discworld. I always get very frustrated when he's not an integral part of a book, but he isn't in this book. So for me, it doesn't make sense. And it's bothersome.
Yeah, I mean, part of me feels like if the luggage was going to be in this, and I guess it would make it even more annoying than it already is mechanically, but, like, he kills people most of the time, doesn't he?
Yeah, so, like, he's homicidal. He goes on homicidal rages.
You should, like, instead of being sent to the hospital, you should, like, lose one of your people or something.
They don't really even have hospitals in Ankh-Morpork. They're basically, like, the guilds have, like, wards? The equivalent of a ward, but they don't call it a hospital. They gave it a weird name that I'm alluding. I don't want to say it wasn't a sanitarium, but something along those lines, and it was just not. It wasn't the same word.
Something that was like an old-timey hospital.
Yeah, basically, but no official hospitals for the populace. I guess I wonder where they go. I guess they just get like witches and things.
Yeah.
Although they don't really have those in Ankh-Morpork. Anyway, we're digressing. Moving on.
Before we get too much into the mechanics and stuff, I'm going to do one more nitpicky thing. I don't like the fact that on the box, the second exclamation point is barely visible because there's a witch flying in front of it, and there's two exclamation points after each guards, and there you should be able to see that second. You mean
two total, one after each guard.
After each word.
There we go. Now we're with it. So now we're gonna tear apart the mechanics. Yeah, rage.
Yes.
You can start because you did the major heavy lifting.
I mean, mechanically, I think it's a little bit of a mess.
Understatement of the year, much?
There's just a lot of different mechanics that are included in it, and I think they could have easily simplified the game to make it less confusing and easier to understand when it comes to like reading the instructions. And because I know the first time we played, it took us a while to kind of go through the instructions and figure out what it meant, and then there were things that we had to clarify, and then things that we came up against while we were playing that was like, oh wait, is that how that's supposed to work or whatever. There's just like a lot of stuff to
your favorite phrase
around.
Too much going on itis.
Yes.
And it's a disease that has plagued this game and many others, and it makes it basically unplayable. There's just too much stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there's too much... It's kind of like when you play, like, Eldritch Horror, which has very specific combat mechanics, and you don't play it for a long time, and then you go back and you have to look every little detail up. That's what this is.
That has a lot of mechanics, too.
It does. Yeah. Many mechanics. But those are manageable.
Yeah.
This, not so manageable.
These, I don't feel like the mechanics go together. That's the thing. It's like I feel like they just threw different mechanics in
and hoped it worked.
Yeah, and just didn't like incorporate them with each other, because at least an Eldritch Horror or like any of the other more complicated games that you'd play, like they complemented each other. Like they were designed. Was a reason why they were the way that they were. And I feel like this, they're just like, we're going to. It's kind of like when you make a like in name only adaptation, kind of like what's happening now with The Watch and Guards, which is technically, I guess, supposed to be a Guards adaptation, but it's not. I mean,
really there is actually a book in the series called The Night Watch.
But this one's with the dragon and stuff, so isn't it supposed to be Guards?
I mean, the Watch is in this book, but there are many books about the Watch and Sam Vimes more specifically, but we digress.
I think the main story of the Watch, I think it's supposed to be Guards, but for the most part, it's in name only. There's so much stuff that's different that it's like basically its own thing, and all they're using is the name and the recognition of the world, and that's kind of what this game is doing. Is they're just kind of using they just wanted to make a game that had the Discworld name on it, and they're just like, we're just going to throw a bunch of crap together and not really care about designing the game itself.
And that's a problem, because people like us actually want to play a fun game.
Yes.
I mean, I like the colors they use. Like, those grays are kind of nice to have on a board that's not, like, too bright. But it is a very clustered board. The game is kind of hard to get back in the box. There are a lot of, like, little movie pieces. It's pretty big. It's not a, table-friendly game. It's moderately shelf-friendly. It's not one of those super obnoxiously sized boxes, like, Stone Age thickness. It's an average, bigger board game box, I would say.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I like the artwork on the cards. Like the character artwork.
Not the biggest on. Some of them are okay. Some of them are not my favorite.
It's fairly detailed, which I kind of like.
True, but they're not attractive, I think, is like my problem. Like, none of them are really like, oh, that's like a pretty character. You're like, oh my, you look distinguished in a strange way. You know what I mean? It's one of those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a ton to say about the game outside of the fact that it's kind of a mess. Like,
it is a very big mess.
There's not really... I mean, I kind of like the aspect of gaining the recruits to get, like, modifiers to do dice rolls, because modifiers and dice rolls are something I like, because I like D&D and stuff like that.
And you also suck at rolling.
But it's also something that, it's like, sometimes you can send a bunch of people back in your party and not get a roll and fail it, basically just because the dice roll's crap. And I think that that's a little bit of a problem. There's also a lot of things that are built into it that are just stalling tactics, like, that just make it last longer, like the saboteur and stuff like that, being able to sabotage people.
And it's too long as it is. I'll go back to what you're saying too in a minute. But the game says it should take about 2 hours. I think every time we've played, it's taken at least 3.
2 hours is long for a game, and if you're going to play a game for that long, it has to be something that's fun.
A good game, yeah.
Yeah, like it has to be something that's going to entertain you throughout the whole thing, but most of it's just dice rolling.
Yeah, but back to the characters. For me, as someone who has read the Discworld, I remember the first time I played, I was like, no, you can't get that character. It's my favorite character. Like, for me, it's like a set collection thing, even though it's not actually a set collection game, but it was like, yay, I got, like, I don't know, Granny. I love Granny Weatherwax, even though she could be a bit difficult at times. She's great. And you would always get her, and I'd get mad at you.
Yeah. Do you have any other kind of final thoughts on...
Basically, this game is a train wreck. A Discworld train wreck. And I'm very sad to say that because, it's just not fun when games are an absolute wreck. You're good? You're good? You said everything?
Yeah, I think I've said everything.
This is our train wreck that we're presenting to the people. Okay, well, if you like what you saw here today, please smash that like button until it's blue. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you thought of Guards, the game or the book, if you'll be picking this up because you like a good train wreck. Some people like that. I'm not judging. Subscribe, ring that bell,
so you know what's up.
And we'll catch you all in the next one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.